Even though our sick daughter's condition suddenly worsened, my husband still went on an affair trip with a 20-year-old female college student. He insisted it was for work and didn't even answer my call asking him to come to see our daughter. Despite my earnest prayers, my daughter sadly passed away. Even in her final moments, my husband Derek did not heed my cries. I saw my daughter's final moments and felt a gaping hole in my heart. Into that hole poured an uncontrollable anger towards my husband. What did I do with this uncontrollable anger? I told my husband that I was in the middle of my daughter's funeral when he lied about his job and went on a cheating trip. I remember the day I gave birth to my daughter like it was yesterday. She was born after only 3 hours of labor. She cried loudly and healthily, showing me her cute face. My husband, who was present at the birth, and my then 5-year-old son were there too. We all rejoiced at her birth. I think our family was truly happy and fulfilled at the time. But now we can no longer laugh together with the same faces. This seems like a serious story. Is it okay to listen to it? Did the family fall apart? Was it due to divorce or estrangement? I divorced my husband, and then my daughter went to heaven before me. Losing my daughter is still very painful. I wanted to protect her, even at the cost of my own life. But my daughter fought hard. She was sick, but she really fought well. I'm proud of my daughter. And of course, my son also fought with us. He must have felt lonely but always thought of his sister. But only my husband betrayed us. We decided to protect my daughter together as a family, but my husband didn't even see her final brave moments. It was something we should have overcome as a couple, but my husband betrayed me. It might remind you of sad things, but if it's okay, I'm going to talk about it here. Yes, I wanted everyone to hear it today. I'll continue talking. Shortly after she was born, a heart condition was found, and she lived a life of repeated hospital admissions. She had several surgeries and many restrictions in her daily life. When we felt relieved that she was healthy, she suddenly got worse, or the test results weren't good. And her hospital stays were prolonged. It was tough, but just seeing my daughter's cute smile kept me going. After learning about my daughter's illness, I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. Because my daughter needed regular hospital visits, my husband and I discussed and decided it would be best. But as soon as I became a full-time housewife, my husband completely dumped all childcare responsibilities on me. It seemed like he assumed I would take care of our daughter's nursing care alone. There was a day when our daughter suddenly fell ill, and I called my husband to take her to the hospital, but his response was terrible. Hello, are you still at work?
I finished work already. I'm out having drinks with colleagues. It's a work celebration.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but could you come home? Our daughter isn't feeling well. I want to take her to the hospital.
Then just take her yourself. Do I need to come back?
I'll go to the hospital, but our son is here. Can't you watch our son at home?
Huh? Why? Shouldn't our son come to the hospital too?
If she needs to be hospitalized, I might need to stay with her. That's why I'm asking you to take care of our son. When can you come back?
Then bring our son with you. Why do I have to come back? I'm with colleagues for work. I'm the one supporting the family. I support the family by working. So handle the kids on your own, Amber.
He said this and completely ignored me. In the end, I asked my parents to take care of our son. I was really upset and sad with my husband, but at that time I had no choice but to endure it. Because as my husband said, I didn't earn any money, so without him I couldn't pay for our daughter's medical expenses. I desperately wanted to protect my daughter, so I couldn't bring myself to confront my husband. But I'm sure that was a mistake. After that, my husband became even more arrogant. He stopped doing any housework or childcare, and of course, he stopped visiting our daughter in the hospital. Even when my son and I tried to talk to him.
I'm tired from work. Besides, she'll be discharged soon anyway, so there's no need to go, right?
That's all he ever says. I was busy to the point of exhaustion every day with housework, taking care of our son and nursing our daughter. Your husband is trash. Isn't he worried about the kids? Really? Has he always been like this? But it wasn't always like this. Initially, when we got married, we both worked, so he helped out quite a bit with the housework. Since our son was born, he has been somewhat involved in parenting. At first, he was really worried about our daughter's illness, but I think my husband started to feel dissatisfied when I began focusing our lives around our daughter. Me being absent from home due to accompanying our daughter to the hospital. Family plans being canceled due to our daughter's health condition. I think these accumulated situations didn't sit well with my husband, so I think he started asserting his role as the breadwinner and trying to dominate. What's all that about? He's acting like a child. Some husbands can't stand not being the center of attention. Seems like some men get jealous of their own children. They really act like children, don't they? But I still had hopes, because there were times when my husband was cooperative, so I thought maybe things would go back to how they used to be. But in the end, my husband disappointed me. He ended up betraying our family. It happened when our daughter turned 4. During this time, our daughter still had regular hospital visits, but on good days, she could go to kindergarten. She couldn't run around like other kids, but she enjoyed singing and drawing with children her age. Her face lit up with joy when called by her friends. It really sparkled. But one day her health deteriorated and she had to be hospitalized. And then about a week after our daughter was hospitalized, I fell ill and ended up bedridden. I wanted to take her a change of clothes to the hospital, but I just couldn't muster the strength to get up. So I decided to ask my husband to take the clothes for me. Hey, could you go to the hospital to see our daughter today? I'm not feeling well. I have a fever, so I can't do it.
I have to work overtime today. Can't you go even if you have a fever? You're her mother.
In my current condition, it's impossible. Do you really have to work overtime?
Of course. I'm working overtime to support you and our daughter.
I appreciate that, but you're her father too. Please prioritize being a father today. I'm begging you. If you really have to work overtime, I'll talk to your company. They have sick leave for caregiving, don't they? I'll tell them you need to take care of me and ask them to let you off.
Don't do that. It'd be embarrassing. Fine, I'll go today.
Because I didn't back down, my husband reluctantly agreed. You held your ground, Amber. Good job. When things get tough, your husband needs to step up too. After all, you're a family. At that time, I was desperate because I was so unwell, so it must have been a burst of adrenaline. My husband grudgingly went back home to get the clothes and headed to the hospital, bumbling all the way. Seeing him go, I felt relieved and decided to rest and recover. It was a special thing for my husband to go to the hospital that day, so I knew I had to push myself again from the next day. But from the next day, my husband seemed like a changed man. After that one visit to the hospital, he started going to see our daughter every day. Surprised, I asked, "What's going on? Are you going to visit her again today?" My husband smiled and said,
Seeing our daughter fighting so hard made me want to support her. So from now on, I'm going to visit her every day.
That's what he told me. I was genuinely moved by his words. I thought he finally understood. But it turned out my husband wasn't visiting the hospital regularly for our daughter's sake. I waited until I was fully recovered before going to see my daughter, thinking my husband was taking care of it. When I finally visited my daughter's hospital room after a while, she clung to me with a face that looked like she was about to cry. "Mommy, did you catch a cold? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Sorry for making you worry." "I missed you. I was sad being alone." "I'm sorry. But Daddy came to see you, right? He was so eager to visit every day." "Daddy came, but he always left quickly. He just dropped off the clothes and left, saying he was busy." Seeing my daughter with tears in her eyes, I realized she was truly lonely. If so, what about my husband? Curious, I asked my daughter slowly. "Daddy did bring your clothes, right? Didn't he stay to talk with you afterward?" "No, he didn't. Daddy just dropped off the clothes and left right away. When I tried to show him my origami, he said he was too busy." Seeing my daughter trying so hard to explain, I felt confused. After all, recently my husband had been saying things like,
I went to the hospital to see our daughter today. I'll go again tomorrow, so if there are any clothes or anything she needs, let me know.
That's what he had been telling me. And he must have actually been going, because the clothes I asked him to bring for our daughter were properly delivered. Come to think of it, he said he was going to visit her after work today too. He was eager to bring some snacks for our daughter. But while he seemed so enthusiastic, our daughter felt lonely because he wasn't spending time with her. I wanted to find out what was causing this disconnect. And since my husband should be at the hospital every evening, I decided to check for myself. I went home, finished the housework, dropped off our son with my parents, and headed back to the hospital. I told my daughter, "Let's surprise Daddy." Wow, I felt so nervous. And what about my husband? It turned out my daughter was telling the truth. My husband came to our daughter's hospital room, handed her the snacks, and then left almost immediately. It didn't even take 2 minutes. Even though I was hiding, I was in a pretty obvious spot, but he didn't notice me at all. When my husband arrived, "Daddy, today," my daughter tried to say, but
I always tell you I'm busy, right? I don't have time, so I'm leaving now,
he said, cutting her off. Watching him leave like a gust of wind, my daughter said, "Oh well, Daddy didn't see you hiding, Mommy. Too bad for him, my daughter said, as if unbothered. But for me, it was unbelievable. So I told my daughter to wait a moment and decided to follow my husband to see where he was going. A short walk from my daughter's hospital room is an area with vending machines. It's set up with tables and chairs, making it a little rest area. And there, my husband was sitting, together with a woman I didn't know. She seemed to be a patient, with bandages on her leg and crutches beside her. My husband and this woman were laughing together, looking like a couple. Even though he spent only a brief moment in our daughter's room, he was leisurely chatting and having tea with this woman. Seeing my husband acting so flirtatiously made me really angry. So, he was visiting this young woman instead of our daughter. Is he cheating? But that woman is a patient in the hospital, right? Cheating in the hospital? Let's call this woman Allie. I think it's certain that my husband was going to see Allie. He seemed to have given her some kind of present at that time. But whether they're in a cheating relationship or if their relationship has developed to that extent, honestly, it seemed suspicious. After all, my husband only started visiting recently. If they met here at this hospital, it should have been not long ago. Is my husband in the middle of trying to charm her? He's really putting in effort, even giving her presents. Is he finding a new love while our daughter is fighting in the same hospital? It's unbelievable. If my husband is trying to start an affair with Allie, I thought I needed to stop it. But this was the first time I caught my husband and Allie together. I figured he could come up with plenty of excuses if I confronted them right now. So I decided to observe my husband's actions a little longer. I planned to gather evidence before confronting him. Since then, he has been happily talking about good things that happened during his visits to our daughter. Perhaps because it's in the hospital, his actions didn't quite seem like cheating. But their relationship seemed to be growing deeper day by day. I have been capturing the cheerful scenes around me with my camera, planning to use them as evidence to confront my husband soon. At that moment, our daughter's condition suddenly worsened. We received a call from the hospital about her condition at exactly 7 a.m., just as we were all starting our usual morning routine. It was a shockingly sudden news. Our son agreed to go with me to visit, and we prepared to head to the hospital together. So I said to my husband, "Please call your company quickly. Let's go to the hospital together." In response,
"If you're going, I'm fine. I'm going to the office,"
Derek said as if he was spitting his words out. He said it dismissively, refusing to go to the hospital despite our daughter's sudden deterioration in condition. That moment was when I truly realized that my husband was hopeless. Without saying another word, I went to the hospital with our son. As I approached my daughter, I saw her in a state of suffering like I had never seen before. There had been many times when her condition had worsened in the past, but this time I felt different. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be true. Hang in there, hang in there. I prayed silently in my heart. I'm sure my son felt the same way. In the midst of it all, I trembled as I contacted my husband. Despite knowing he was unreliable, I needed him at that moment. I didn't need him to do anything. I just wanted him to be here and pray for our daughter. It was such a simple request, yet my husband dismissed it completely. "Please, our daughter's condition is not good. Come to the hospital. Stay with us."
"So what can I do about it? Haven't we been through this many times before? You're always exaggerating." "Oh, I just got a business trip scheduled now. I don't think I can come back today. I probably won't be able to answer calls either. It's an important deal."
"Wait! Please wait, I'm begging you." Looking back now, I realize how pathetic I must have seemed, clinging to my husband, but my pleas didn't reach him. And then the phone call was abruptly ended. I felt frustrated and sad, and tears wouldn't stop flowing. "Dad can't come? Mom, are you okay? I'm here with you. Mom, please don't cry." My son encouraged me as he saw me crying. He was only 9 years old. That was the moment I truly woke up. I had to stay strong. From then on, I wiped away my tears and stayed by my daughter's side with my son. For a long, long time, while we spoke softly, our daughter struggled bravely. She passed away that same night. My son and I cried and clung to my departed daughter, holding her small body close. But we couldn't keep crying forever. After that, I made phone calls to various places to inform them of my daughter's passing. Of course, I also called my husband, but as expected, he didn't answer the phone. After that, time passed in a flurry, preparing for the wake, preparing for the funeral. On top of that, I had another matter that needed my attention. I was truly overwhelmed with busyness to the point of feeling dizzy. But strangely, I found it comforting. If I do nothing, tears come when I think of our daughter. Amber, what can I say? It's so sad. That jerk of a husband not being here at a time like this? Is work really that important to him? No, it can't just be work. His relationship with Allie seems suspicious. To cut to the chase, my husband lied to me. He didn't go on any business trip, but I decided to proceed with the wake and funeral without my husband. And just minutes before the funeral began, my husband finally called back.
Hey, you keep calling over and over. It's annoying. Are you trying to interfere with my work?
I called that night too. Was that also work-related?
Nights are busy with client dinners. Seriously, don't keep calling over trivial things.
Trivial things? Fine then. The funeral for our daughter is starting now, so I'll hang up. It might be trivial to you.
Huh? What do you mean? Whose funeral?
It's our daughter's funeral. And by the way, your colleagues from work are already here.
What? What does that mean?
He hung up on me after hearing that. And then I went to say my final goodbye to our daughter. The funeral proceeded smoothly after that. Everyone mourned the passing of our daughter. And then came the time for her to be carried out. At that moment, my husband finally appeared at the hall, tears streaming down his face.
Oh, poor thing. She was only 4 years old,
he cried out as he approached our daughter. But the men by his side stopped him. They were his colleagues from work.
What have you been doing all this time? You were supposed to be on leave, right? Amber was told you were on a business trip, but there was no such plan, right? Well, I was working. I was trying to secure new clients during my leave.
My husband struggled to explain, tears pouring down his face again. My husband glared at me.
It was indeed an important job, but when it came to our daughter's critical situation, I should have rushed back immediately. Why didn't you let me know about it? Because of that, I couldn't be there for my beloved daughter's final moments.
He shouted and collapsed on the spot. I think he tried to shift the focus away by mentioning the fake business trip when his colleagues pointed it out. But I don't think anyone felt sorry for him considering how absurd his attempt was. Because by then, everyone already knew where my husband had been and what he had been doing all this time. I called several times, but you didn't answer.
That's a lie. I didn't notice the calls. If you really intended to let me know, you could have left more missed calls, right? You neglected to do that.
So during your stay at that spa resort, should I have called you there?
Huh?
You were doing business at a luxury spa resort, right? Was it a business meeting? It must have been tough. And your business partner, Allie, seems quite young. What did she do? You stayed multiple nights for the business, but you only booked one room, right? Were you perhaps roughing it out somewhere? Or did you stay in the same room? As I relentlessly questioned my husband, his face turned pale. I drove the point home by thrusting several photos at my husband. In those photos, there were images of my husband and Allie holding hands and walking through the spa town. He was cheating after all. How despicable. Incredible. How did you find out? Actually, someone from my husband's company helped me out. After our daughter passed away, I couldn't reach my husband, so I contacted his company. I asked for the phone number of his business trip location. My daughter had passed away while battling illness. Then surprisingly, someone from my husband's company informed me that he had taken a vacation. That fact left me feeling completely numb. What was he doing, not being there for our daughter's final moments? I suppose they could sense my despair. The employee who handled the call kindly said,
I'll look into it a bit more.
And through their investigation, that employee found out that my husband was apparently on a spa trip. He's probably not alone. There might be someone he's having an affair with. And they told me. So right after that, I immediately hired a detective to investigate my husband's affair. The employees at my husband's company were amazing. They were so capable, weren't they? It was great to have such kind people around. Amber's subsequent actions were also swift and impressive. I'm really grateful to the employee. I truly appreciated it. But apparently, my husband was incredibly careless. There was a spa brochure on his desk, they say, and inside the spa brochure, there was a pamphlet for a cosmetics brand aimed at young women. He must have been quite excited because even the travel itinerary notes were left behind, so news of my husband's affair spread like wildfire in no time at all. Moreover, since the news of our daughter's passing was also conveyed, it seems the employees were furious with my husband's actions. I also informed the relatives who came to the wake about this situation. I pleaded with everyone not to contact my husband anymore. I didn't want him to attend our daughter's funeral. Realizing that everyone knew everything, my husband turned pale. He He seemed resigned and suddenly started to bow deeply right then and there.
I'm sorry. I didn't expect things to get this bad. I don't know what came over me. It was just a little fling.
He started apologizing earnestly, but I couldn't forgive him, and I didn't let him near the funeral home, of course. Of course I didn't take him to the crematorium either. I asked his colleagues to ensure he didn't get near our daughter. Despite everything, we were able to safely send my daughter off to heaven. Please wait there for a while. I conveyed my love to her in my heart. Afterward, I proceeded with divorce negotiations through a lawyer. Of course, I also requested compensation. I demanded compensation from Allie as well, which caused the relationship between my husband and Allie to fall apart. Can you believe it? Allie is still a 20-year-old college student. I didn't expect to get involved in something like this. Allie apparently didn't know my husband was married, and now she's threatening to sue. It seems my husband's position at work deteriorated, and he ended up resigning. His parents and relatives came to the funeral, so it seems he's been abandoned even by his own family. I imagine he's living somewhere alone now. It's just a natural consequence for him. No room for sympathy. As for Amber, how are you doing now? Have things settled down a bit? I'm currently living with my 2 children. Sometimes my son and I talk about our daughter. She was adorable and surely smart too, I'm sure of it. I know it sounds completely biased, but talking about my daughter like that now makes me happy. Thank you all for listening to my story. I feel relieved now, and somehow my heart feels organized. From now on, I'll face forward in life, because my daughter is watching over me, rather than a husband who prioritized his ugly desires over his daughter fighting illness. As a result, my husband lost not only our daughter, but also the trust of everyone around him. Someone who can't cherish their closest family can never make anyone happy, and surely they won't be loved by anyone. After all, human hearts are ultimately tied by trust.
My husband went on an overseas trip with a female friend, leaving me at 9 months pregnant. When he returned, he turned pale in an instant.
I married a high school classmate and became pregnant. However, my husband Mark's behavior became suspicious after the pregnancy was confirmed. While I was struggling to find proof of my husband's affair, his affair partner sent me a series of photographs as if to say, "I got your husband." Seeing this, I made a decision. I smiled as I saw off my husband, who went on a trip with his affair partner, a female friend. And that's when my plan started moving forward. I had prepared a surprise for my husband, who went on an overseas trip with his affair partner, Angela, and the result was... How does one break a relationship? It seems that the ties that I thought had been severed were not severed. Please, let me vent for a moment. There was a time when even someone like me was married. My husband was a high school classmate. After high school, we went separate ways without much contact, but we coincidentally met at a diner near my workplace. Nostalgia kicked in, and our conversations became more frequent and lively. Naturally, we started dating and eventually talked about marriage. After we got married, we decided to live together in the apartment where I was staying. I think we were a happy couple in the early days of our marriage. My husband used to say he preferred doing everything together, but after my pregnancy was confirmed, he started going out alone more often. His overtime and business trips increased. He always said he was busy, almost like a habit. When he returned from outings, I asked where he had been, and he casually brushed it off, saying it didn't matter. Occasionally, when he returned smelling good, he claimed he had been to the sauna. However, I knew he couldn't stand heat, so I quickly realized it was a lie. I had a vague feeling that he might have another woman. As I pondered how to catch him in the act, a WhatsApp message came through. It contained a photo of an unfamiliar woman and my husband together. Another message arrived. This time it was a photo of the same woman making a peace sign with my husband sleeping in the background. Clearly it showed a situation where he was cheating. The woman was smiling provocatively in the photos. Then another WhatsApp message came in. "Nice to meet you. I'm Angela, who's dating your husband. I took a cute sleeping face photo of your husband, so I thought I'd share it with you too. Your husband can't get enough of me because you're pregnant, so he's all over me. Please pay a little attention to your husband too." That was the message. Dating? Sharing? What is this Angela talking about? Wait, my husband? He really was cheating, wasn't he? Through this "what's up" from Angela, my suspicions all came together. Although I vaguely sensed it before, seeing it clearly in front of me didn't make me angry or sad. Somewhere inside me, I had already mentally prepared for a divorce. Even on the day my husband came home, I didn't confront him about the truth and treated him the same as before. Before my husband took a bath, I heard that next month he was going on a week-long overseas trip with his female friend. Well, it's not a request, it's an announcement made after the decision. Next month is already 9 months and maybe the baby will be born. He doesn't worry about such things at all. He even told me not to worry because the baby won't be born so soon. He said he gave me some alone time because it would be tough when the baby was born. His female friend also said, "Let your wife have some freedom." So he told me to relax. Then I'll take you up on that and enjoy my alone time thoroughly. Oh, Stacy, are you condoning your husband's affair? No, that response isn't right. Oh, Stacy, I understand perfectly well. You seem to be plotting something. I'll look forward to it. There's no way I'm going to let it end like this. I don't have the magnanimity to forgive my husband's cheating. After this, Angela, my husband's friend, kept sending me photos one after another. She probably wanted to establish dominance, but it's no skin off my nose since I've already decided to divorce. Besides, evidence of his affair keeps accumulating without me having to do anything. Talk about a lucky break. I've been enjoying myself. Then after a month had passed, it became the day when my husband would go on his trip overseas. Yesterday, perhaps out of excitement, he seemed unable to fall asleep easily. He tossed and turned on the bed multiple times, waking me up repeatedly. Unaware of my sleep deprivation caused by him, my husband happily set off on his trip. Now, should I start taking action? I started cleaning up the house all at once. I had household appliances cleaned and sold. I took small items to a nearby recycling shop. I bundled up my husband's belongings and sent them cash on delivery to his parents' house. I also sent the divorce papers along with them. Since I have been steadily reducing things in the house since I made the plan, it was tidied up sooner than I expected. My belongings were already sent to my parents' house, and only the bare essentials were left in this house. The cancellation of the house was already arranged. I also completed the procedures for electricity and gas utilities. I had already collected the keys to the house for my husband, as it's dangerous for him to take them abroad. After cleaning the house thoroughly and handing over the keys, I returned home with my belongings to my parents' house. My father and mother warmly welcomed me, and the three of us had already moved to another place. While peacefully spending time at my parents' house, I received a call from my husband. Today was the day my husband was returning home. I answered the incessantly ringing phone.
Hey, what's going on here? I rang the doorbell. Why aren't you opening the door?
I'm not in that house anymore.
Huh? Are you out somewhere? You said you were at home, so I left the keys. Now I can't get into the house. Hurry up and come back. I'm exhausted.
I'm not going back to that house anymore.
What are you talking about?
I canceled the lease on the house. Your stuff is sent to your parents' house.
Hey, what's going on? Why did you cancel the house? My stuff to my parents?
Even over the phone, I can feel my husband's growing panic.
Huh? Why is this happening? Why? Did I do something?
I'm going on a week-long overseas trip with a female friend? I can't understand your thoughts.
I talked about it. I wanted to give you some time alone. I tried to consider you. Isn't that enough?
If I wanted time alone, there were other ways, like going back to my parents, right? If it was really just a female friend, I wouldn't be this upset. You went with Angela, right? You know best what you did, don't you? My words made him realize the severity of the situation, and he became even more flustered. Angela's name had never come up from my husband's mouth before. Since I mentioned Angela's name as his female friend, he must have realized his affair was exposed.
No, listen, Angela isn't just a friend. She's my soulmate. My soulmate. It's like a soul connected to soul. It's something beyond friendship.
My husband trying desperately to push through with his excuses. It's becoming painful to listen to. Soulmates, huh? Well, and if you can be happy with your so-called soulmate, go ahead. Living with you anymore is impossible for me. I'm filing for divorce. I've sent the divorce papers to your parents' house, so fill them out.
I don't want a divorce. I don't want it. Hey, please, just listen to me.
I didn't want to hear any more excuses, so I hung up on my husband's call. Soulmate. It's been a while since I heard such a terrible excuse. Soulmate isn't going to cut it. It's like he's talking about his destined partner or something. Trying to make excuses, but digging his own grave. He's really not helping himself. After that, I received several calls and messages from my husband. The WhatsApp messages ranged from excuses and sob stories to compliments and poems, changing like 7 times. While watching that, I started feeling pain in my stomach. It felt different from normal pain, so just in case, I decided to go to the hospital. I contacted my parents and headed to the hospital alone for a checkup, thinking it was just stomach pain. I called my mom amidst the hustle and bustle to bring the childbirth bag. During all this time, the calls kept coming. I had no room to care about my husband and steadily prepared to deliver the baby. Because of that, I couldn't escape the pain of labor, no matter how I positioned myself. Amidst my suffering from the pain, my husband's calls kept coming in. The pain of labor combined with everything else reached its peak of frustration for me. I answered my husband's call.
Finally got through.
Stop calling so many times, damn it. Can't you see I'm in labor? I don't have time for you. After yelling at my husband, I immediately hung up and turned off my phone. I really had no patience left. I was battling through repeated waves of contractions. Meanwhile, it seems my husband finally regained his senses and rushed to the hospital, but he went to the wrong hospital, so it ended up being in vain. Well, I hadn't told him where I was being transferred to. While my husband was flustered, I safely gave birth to our son, feeling completely exhausted. Since our son didn't weigh more than 5 pounds, he had to be put in an incubator. Perhaps I had exhausted myself too much because I fell asleep right after giving birth to our son. I woke up refreshed the next day. When I turned on my smartphone, I found an overwhelming number of missed calls and WhatsApp messages from my husband. When I checked what's up, at first they were angry, but gradually became less assertive, and by the end, their messages were filled with complaints and self-pity. Finally, it ended with the creepy words,
"My heart will always be by your side,"
which made me feel disgusted. Seriously, please don't come near me anymore. I don't need my husband's heart anymore. Just to be safe, I informed the nurses to restrict visitation rights to only my parents. Despite that, my husband's calls and WhatsApp messages continued frequently. But I didn't respond. I always kept my phone on silent mode, so I didn't notice calls from anyone other than my husband. My mother complained that she couldn't contact me. When the day came to leave the hospital, my parents came to pick me up, but I couldn't leave with our son who was in the incubator. Since I gave birth at 35 weeks, it was considered premature, and our son would need to grow a bit more before joining us. As we drove back home with my father at the wheel, I noticed someone's figure at the front door. Getting out of the car and heading towards the entrance, there was my husband, dressed in a suit, kneeling and waiting. I asked my mother why he was there at this timing, but she was as surprised as I was. Beside her, my father wore an apologetic expression. When I asked my father what was going on, he said he felt sorry for my husband and informed him of the day I was to be discharged. It seemed my husband had been trying to contact both my father and mother numerous times. My mother apparently ignored him completely, but my father, being of the same gender, seemed to listen to him occasionally. Although I had told my parents about divorcing my husband, my father seemed to want to settle things peacefully. I made sure to firmly tell my father not to let my husband contact me again. My husband, who had been kneeling at the front door, kept bowing his head and apologizing repeatedly. Even if he apologized now, my feelings wouldn't change, and I had no intention of forgiving him. As I walked past him towards the house, he clung to my legs, which made me feel disgusted. No matter how much he apologized, it was already too late. I told him to go home and conveyed that message clearly, then peeled his hands off my legs and entered the house. My mother entered the house without saying a word to my husband as well. My father urged my husband to go home for the day. While my husband was no longer in front of the entrance, he wandered around the neighborhood. Feeling uneasy about the situation, I decided to report him as a suspicious person. A few minutes later, the police arrived and questioned my husband. He wasn't taken away by the police, but he disappeared from sight. It would have been better if he had been taken away by the police. Stacy, could it be that your husband is going through a postpartum period, as they say? If he's going to apologize like this, he shouldn't have done it in the first place. Saying he didn't want a divorce, but then going on a trip with a female friend, what does my husband really want? Later, it was decided to have a discussion involving both families. Considering my health, we decided to have the discussion at my parents' home. The doorbell rang and my in-laws and husband arrived. My husband and father-in-law had shaved their heads completely. It must have been a ruse to show repentance. As soon as they came in, my husband and father-in-law lowered their heads. My mother-in-law stood behind them with a stern expression. My husband kept apologizing incessantly, insisting he didn't want a divorce. My mother, seeing him continue to apologize, suggested that I should forgive him. But I can't live with a husband I want to divorce anymore. It would take the father away from the child, but this one thing is non-negotiable. At this point, I was rejecting my husband more than I should have, and forgiveness was not an option left in my mind. When the conversation had hit a deadlock, with neither side making progress, my mother-in-law, who had been wearing a stern expression since arriving at our house, finally spoke up.
It's just a trip overseas with a female friend, isn't it? Isn't it a bit too much to divorce over that? I think you, Stacy, are making too much of a fuss. It's pitiful for your son if his mother acts like this. Such a fuss over such a trivial matter, that wife of yours. You're going on an overseas trip with friend for some real action. My mother-in-law must think I'm upset just because my husband went on an overseas trip with a female friend. But that's not all, you see. When I stood up to show my in-laws the printed out evidence of cheating sent via WhatsApp, the doorbell rang. My mother went to the door to respond, but along with her voice saying, "Just a moment," someone came bustling into the house. With a bang, the door swung open, revealing Angela standing there. Angela has arrived. I feel like things are about to get wild. It's exciting, and I kinda like it. Angela descends upon us. No one summoned her. She's here uninvited. Everyone was surprised by Angela's sudden appearance. Husband, divorce Stacy right now.
Hold on, what are you talking about? Not divorcing Stacy, and there's no reason to.
Mark started to panic when Angela arrived, realizing she was indeed his mistress.
Wait, how did you find out about this place? I said we should talk, but you wouldn't know the location, right?
It's the GPS on our phones. I installed the app last time. Let's check each other's locations, okay? If we know where each other is, we won't feel lonely. Even if we're apart, we're always together.
Wow, I'm totally taken aback by what she just said. My husband has a look on his face like, shit.
I told you not to come here. What are you doing here? You have no business here.
Huh? You say I have no business here? Can you say the same after seeing this?
Angela took something out of her bag and placed it on the desk. Upon seeing it, my husband paled instantly and everyone else was taken aback. On the desk lay the maternity record book and an ultrasound photo. Where it says mother, something that appeared to be Angela's name was written. In the ultrasound photo, a tiny embryo was visible.
It's your child, 6 weeks along.
The word pregnant caused further shock for me and my parents. I looked at my mother-in-law for some reason and her face was lit up.
Oh, so it's my son's child, huh?
My mother-in-law took the ultrasound photo and gazed at it with a joyful expression.
Really, you should divorce Stacy already. Having a wife like her just makes things difficult for you. Now that you have a new child, you need to take responsibility.
As expected, Mom, you get straight to the point. I'm happy to have such a clever mom.
Oh, clever? Well, I suppose. The new daughter-in-law is adorable, isn't she?
It seemed like a flower garden was blooming around them. We're completely left out and abandoned. I knew my mother-in-law didn't like me, but I didn't expect her to show such blatant attitude. Now that it seems you've got a new child, shall we talk about divorce?
Wait a minute, it's just you, Stacy, for me. I'm not getting divorced.
Angela and my mother-in-law's expressions changed at my husband's words.
What are you talking about? You should divorce Stacy, Mark. That's right, you should divorce such a wife. Being with such a wife will only lead to unhappiness.
My daughter is causing unhappiness?
Up until now, my parents had been quietly watching. My father's voice was filled with anger. My mother sitting beside me also had a fierce expression on her face.
Your son is making my daughter unhappy and my newborn son too. The cause of the divorce isn't my daughter if it's your son. Do you understand? The reason our daughter had a premature birth is because of you two, isn't it? And yet you're saying my daughter's the one causing unhappiness. You two are spreading unhappiness. I can't let you stay together any longer. I will make sure my daughter divorces you, and I will never allow you to see your grandchild. Get out of this house. You are a plague in my house.
My father then grabbed my husband by the scruff of the neck and threw him out of the house. My in-laws and Angela followed close behind.
Wait a minute.
You see the reality of the situation, and you know you can't go back to the way things were. Be happy with Angela. Also the money from selling the house stuff. I'll give you half of it in advance. When I put the brown envelope with the cash in front of my husband, Angela took it from him.
Wow, thank you so much. I'll accept this as a wedding gift for us.
Mark was astonished by Angela's actions and couldn't help but wonder what he saw in her. I was a little depressed to think that I had lost my husband to someone who did not have common sense or courtesy.
What's wrong with you? To put my son through this? Honestly, I can't stand families without any common sense. Let's go home. Since you're getting divorced anyway, there's no reason to stay here anymore. I don't want to stay here anymore either. Mark, let's go home soon.
My husband was then pulled along by my mother-in-law and Angela. My father-in-law followed behind them somewhat reluctantly.
Honey, bring me the salt. Salt! I've already got it. Here you go.
My parents held salt in their hands and kept throwing it at my in-laws and Angela repeatedly, even after they disappeared from view. A few days later, a pre-filled divorce form arrived at the house. Finally, the divorce could happen. Congratulations, Stacy. My husband resisted until the end, but I wonder why he didn't want to divorce. I thought Angela was just a fling, but it seems it got out of hand. Cheating during my wife's pregnancy is something you hear about often, huh? As usual, everyone's insights here are amazing. That's right, it looks like it was just a fling with Angela. After our discussion at my parents' house, I got a long apologetic what's up from my husband. It said he truly loves only me. Well, if that were true, he shouldn't have cheated, right? After the divorce papers arrived, I sent a lawyer to my ex-husband and Angela. We needed to decide on child support and alimony, of course. Of course, I'll also claim alimony from Angela, but my ex-husband never mentioned wanting to meet or have a visit with our child. No matter how much he says he loves me, he totally ignored his child. After quickly deciding the amount of child support and alimony, I submitted the divorce papers to the city office. Then I texted my ex-husband and told him I had submitted the divorce papers. With this, my ties with my husband have ended. Or so I thought. Oh no, that sounds ominous. But because we have a son, even though the ties are over, it won't be the end like this. Since my ex-husband is likely full of regret, I expect he might do something. About 10 years after the divorce, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was my ex-husband on the line. He said he wanted to meet our son. I wondered why now, but he is still our son's father. Yet he has never met our son since birth. Still, I asked why he suddenly wanted to meet. At first, he hesitated but reluctantly told me that Angela's child wasn't actually his. When the child got sick, they tested the blood type at the hospital. The child had a blood type that couldn't possibly be theirs. When he confronted Angela about it, she admitted to having a relationship with others. It seems Angela knew the child wasn't my ex-husband's. But since my ex-husband had the highest income and stability among her partners, she chose to stay with him. He was deeply shocked to realize the child he had raised as his own wasn't biologically his, so he wanted to meet his true biological child, our son. By the way, he said he wouldn't tell his parents about this. It seems like I intend to take this secret to my grave alone. He didn't want to change his current relationships or life. I was infuriated by my ex-husband's selfish attitude, but I don't have the right to refuse him seeing his child. I have contacted the lawyer who helped me during the divorce again to discuss this. I'm currently trying to figure out how to prevent my ex-husband from meeting our child. Wow, Angela's plan was so calculated, it's really despicable. She had your husband raise someone else's child. As for your ex-husband and in-laws, serves them right. Ignorance is bliss, huh? Well, your ex-husband has found out. I think my ex-husband will suffer more now that he knows. You can't be happy with others after destroying your own family. When you do something beyond the realm of morality, you get retribution. I thought I'd be careful about my ex-husband. Although the meeting between my ex-husband and my child hasn't been settled yet, I'll end it here for now. I'll make sure to return if there's any good news. Thank you for sticking with me through all this. Stacy, I pray you can refuse the visitation. I can't quite accept that even such a father has the right to meet the child. Why not wait until the kid wants to see his father? Don't selfishly manipulate the child because of the parents. Considering you, Stacy, the child will make the best decision. We should warmly watch over the child. The husband who cheated during Stacy's pregnancy has fallen into an irreversible situation. The home was shattered by Angela, and the family built with Angela was also a lie. Angela may think she successfully broke up Stacy and her husband and married her husband, but if the child realizes the secret of his birth, will the current situation continue? The conclusion is uncertain, but Angela's future may not be bright. Selfish happiness makes those around you unhappy. Is that really happiness? Not realizing true happiness itself might be a form of unhappiness.
After childbirth, my cheating husband asked for a divorce. I agreed and moved out. A year later, he started calling constantly.
My husband looked at me and said, I have no feelings left for you, so let's get divorced. I don't care about the baby either, so you get custody. Then, unbelievably, his mistress chimed in.
It's pathetic. You have to take care of the baby and work all by yourself from now on? Good luck with that.
Even though things are tough now, I won't be defeated. The day will come when both of them will regret this. My name is Lucy. I'm 28 and I'm pregnant. I married Darren 2 years ago. We were the same age and coworkers. He was good looking, friendly, and doing well in his sales job. So I decided to take maternity and childcare leave, knowing he could support us financially. I was having a peaceful and happy pregnancy until... You're late again. You've been working overtime a lot lately, haven't you?
I can't help it. The baby's coming soon and I feel pressure to make more money, so I take on more work.
I appreciate it, but don't work too hard. As my due date approached, Darren started coming home later and later. I couldn't always stay up, being pregnant and all, so sometimes I went to bed early, which seemed to annoy him.
Must be nice for you. You get to laze around all day because you're pregnant. I'm stuck working for this family. Being a dad sucks.
What are you talking about? This baby is yours too, you know.
Yeah. You're always angry these days. Women should just smile and agree with men.
His demeaning comments increased as he started coming home late. I was really worried about his lack of fatherly responsibility and argued back every time he made a snide remark. But it didn't change anything. And a little while later, I gave birth. The baby, a beautiful girl, was born safely while Darren was at work. I emailed him to let him know and asked him to come to the hospital after work.
I can't. I have a business dinner.
He replied coldly. Seriously? A business dinner when your baby is born? Something felt off. He never visited us at the hospital that night. When I brought the baby home, he barely acknowledged her. Hey Darren, she's our child. Hold her. I forced him to hold her, and he started shaking.
Whoa, she's so tiny and soft. I'm scared.
What are you talking about? Hold her properly.
If I hold her too tight, I might break her arms or her legs, and then you'll sue me for damages. Just take her back.
What? You think she's a doll or something? He reluctantly handed the baby back and got annoyed.
This isn't what I expected. I thought she'd be a beautiful baby girl like me, but she's just a wrinkly monkey that sleeps all the time. We can't even take her out.
Of course not. She's a newborn. It'll be months before we...
I don't want to hear your complicated explanations. You always try to one-up me.
He sulked, and I felt despair. But things only got worse from here.
I'm home. Hey, Lucy, your master is back.
Do you know what time it is? You'll wake the baby and disturb the neighbors.
How dare you talk to the head of the household like that? You're not feminine at all. Becoming a mom made you lose your womanhood.
What the... I thought things would change once the baby was born and we brought her home, but I was wrong. Once again, he came home late at night, causing a ruckus in the entryway. He didn't just ignore his family. He strutted around like a king, getting angry at me. He was also reeking of alcohol and a sweet perfume. Is he? I could always smell perfume when he came home late. I didn't want to believe it, but an idea kept circling in my head. Hey, we need to talk. I confronted him one weekend while our daughter was napping.
What's up with the sudden seriousness?
Darren, lounging in his sweats, looked puzzled. He did nothing around the house, even on his days off.
Want to thank me for working so hard? I'm a great dad, right?
No, that's not what I meant. When I spoke more firmly, he made a face of irritation.
What's up with you? Don't ruin my precious day off with this stuff.
You've been coming home late since I was close to giving birth. Why?
Because I've been busy at work, working hard for you guys.
But you always smell like women's perfume when you're late. Are you seeing someone else? I braced myself to confront him. He looked surprised for a moment, then smirked.
You figured it out, huh?
What? Do you understand how awful that is?
Oh, shut up. This is partly your fault. Don't put all the blame on me.
My fault? How is it my fault? You're the one cheating.
Because you're always so annoying. See? Like what you're doing right now? You stress me out.
I was speechless at his absurd excuses. You think that's an excuse? I finally managed to speak, and he let out a big sigh.
Ugh. It's not an excuse. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Just be home, okay?
What do you mean?
Just wait.
He said casually and left, leaving me confused and trembling.
I'm back.
Hello. The next day, I heard Darren and a familiar female voice at the door. Sally? Why are you here? It was my college friend Sally. She was always flashy and assertive, the opposite of me. I said she was my friend, but it's not like I wanted to hang out with her often. Oh, Lucy, you're still so dense. I'm here to take Darren. They laughed at my stunned expression.
I swear, you always have the dumbest reactions, unlike Sally.
What did you say? I was angry, but I quickly turned on my phone's recording app. Then I remembered seeing Sally and Darren at a mall when I first got pregnant. You two started seeing each other back then? Close enough. I slipped in my number and he called me and we started talking. Sally blushed as she recounted their affair. It's the same thing. I can't believe this. Darren, you were already a father then.
See, Lucy, you always bring up fatherhood and responsibility. No wonder I looked elsewhere. I'm successful and popular.
Poor Darren. He got trapped with a baby and tied down. Of course he sought comfort from me. God will forgive you, baby. Trapped? Do you even know what you're saying, Sally? I was shocked by their immature comments.
I was cornered into marriage. You turned into a slob after getting pregnant and made everything about the baby.
And look at what you're wearing now. Why are you in that loose dress? If you want to keep your man, you should be dressing up every day. You two have no idea how hard it is to be a parent. I can't prioritize fashion over my baby. Sally screamed in mock horror. Oh my god, you're so scary. Is this what they call a momzilla?
Lucy, you got so tough. Unlike Sally, who's delicate. Don't be so hard on her.
I was speechless in front of these clueless cheaters. They couldn't be serious. Darren continued.
Anyway, I have no feelings left for you, so let's get divorced. I don't care about the baby. She's too small and fragile, and I can't show her off. She's useless.
She's not a doll.
Whatever. You can have custody. I'll just sign the papers.
Oh, Lucy, you're so pathetic. You'll have to raise the baby and work all alone. Good luck with that. They laughed smugly at me. I must have looked pale. The most humiliating part was that I married this man and introduced this woman as a friend. I clenched my fists in anger and shame and glared at the two of them. Fine, Darren, I'll divorce you. But I'll be suing both of you for damages and asking for child support.
What's with that sore loser attitude? No matter what you ask for, I'm a top salesman. I can pay you and still live in luxury with her.
And I'm a career woman too, so paying you won't hurt me. They laughed off my rightful demands. These two were helpless.
I'll move into Sally's place. You can't afford this rent, so move out.
Aww, Dumped with a baby and no home. You've really hit rock bottom, Lucy. I'll let our college friends know so they can pity you. They left, laughing. Why was this happening? As I was about to collapse in the living room, I heard my daughter crying after waking up from her nap. Holding her soft, warm body gave me strength. I wiped my tears and said to her, "We don't need him. He'll get what's coming." Darren and Sally seemed confident, but there's no way I was gonna let this slide. Both of them would experience a despair even greater than mine. A year later, my daughter and I were living happily. I returned to work early, and my parents helped with childcare. One day, my phone kept ringing. It was Darren, who I wanted to erase from my contacts, but I needed him for child support, so I couldn't. He sent a text saying he'd stop paying if I ignored him. What a pain even after we split, I muttered and answered. "What do you want now?" "Lucy, finally! Help me! I can't take it anymore." He sounded tearful. "You can't take what anymore?" "Sally, you knew she was a shopaholic, didn't you?" "Not really. She just loves brands and never wore the same outfit twice in college. She also took out loans for beauty treatments." "You should have warned me. I wouldn't have married her." "Not my problem. Hey, if this is just about something stupid like that, I'm hanging up. Enjoy your life with your spendthrift wife." "Wait! We need to talk about child support. Can we meet? Please." He used child support to force a meeting. He was pathetic, but I was curious to see his downfall. I met him at a coffee shop after work one day. "Long time no see." "Yeah, let's get to the point. My parents are watching my daughter." I cut him off coldly. "Right, okay. Like I told you on the phone, Sally's spending is out of control. Can you reduce the child support?" "What? No way. Hire a lawyer if you want to negotiate, but you won't win." He looked desperate. "You went back to work, right? Help me. She's drained my savings. I'm surviving on carrots these days." "Huh? You bragged to me that you'd live in luxury with her." "I know, but her spending is insane. And for some reason, I got transferred to some rural office and nothing's going right." Before we married, I supported him at work. He was charming but made lots of mistakes, and I covered for him. Moreover, my work performance was rated much higher than his, who was only valued for his looks and charm. When I explained the situation to HR, they promptly transferred him to a branch office in the countryside. I didn't expect him to be so useless without me. While he was half crying, the coffee shop door opened and in walked Sally in brand clothes and perfume. "Darren, meeting your ex without telling me? Unbelievable!" "What? Why are you here?" A year ago, they were all lovey-dovey. Now he's completely terrified of her. I invited her. "You two should discuss your money issues." Darren turned even paler. Sally looked smug. "Money issues? No problem. I earn enough and control his cards and pins." "You've been spending all my money and yours too. I never thought you'd be such a spendthrift. You're a con artist." A year after accusing me of fraud, he was now accusing her of the same. His habit of blaming others was pathetic, but her spending was really something else. "How dare you! You said you wanted a beautiful wife. I was just trying to please you. If anything, you're the scam artist here. Your income dropped after the divorce." "I don't know why that happened." "Don't call me a spender. And Lucy, stay out of her business." "But he's the one who called me, and besides, you destroyed my family, so I don't want to hear it from you." My words hit her, and she fell silent. I sighed. "I don't care about your finances, but you both owe me. Darren, pay child support. Sally, Pay damages. Sally, you didn't pay yet? You told the lawyer you'd pay it in full. We're in trouble. Nothing happened when I didn't pay. Who cares? Darren was exasperated. Sally, you're crazy. And you are just as bad for cheating with her. I was tired of their foolish comments, but I straightened up and smiled at Sally. Sally, did you bring what I asked for? She brightened up. I did? I can't believe you want to see these. Jealous much, Lucy? She pulled out demand letters from various law firms. What's this? Darren was shocked. He didn't know she was sued by so many people. Sorry, babe. I'm just really popular, especially with lawyers. I guess they immediately see my charm? What are you saying? These are all demand letters for damages. He collapsed. Sally was clueless. Demand letters? They have lawyer names on them. They probably say they fell in love with me at first sight or something. I'm used to it. She smirked, but Darren grabbed the letters. These are all for cheating? They say they'll enforce payment. It's as if you keep ignoring this, they'll enforce it. How much have you been ignoring? Sally, you've been breaking up homes since college. How many? Darren was shocked to hear this, but she didn't care. So what? I'm irresistible. Men always choose me. I'm just too attractive. I looked at her, lost in her own world, with the utmost contempt. Sally, you're just a second choice. You don't get it, do you? Excuse me? All my lovers said they loved me more than their wives. Sure, but you owe millions in damages. You'll never pay it all. What do you mean? She still didn't grasp the situation. I spoke slowly to make sure her head in the clouds could understand. These aren't love letters from lawyers. They're demands for damages from the wives of your flings. Ignore them and the court will garnish your wages. Not love letters? My paycheck's taken? No way! But if they can enforce it, you must have signed legal documents, right? This is serious. Come to think of it, I might have signed something, but I didn't think it mattered. Well, it does. You're trapped. The court will enforce it. She turned pale. The court? You're not serious, are you? Am I a criminal? What do I do? Help me! She started sobbing. I spread the letters and gave her advice. Pay up to avoid garnishment. You owe me too. $4,000 here, $25,000 there, $50,000 there. I don't have that much. If my pay is garnished, how do I live? Darren, help me. Make more money so I'm not a criminal. Her screaming brought Darren back to his senses. Hell no. Marrying you was a mistake. I'll sue you too. What? You lied about working late to date younger women. I'll countersue you. What? They were hopeless, and I was done. Wait, Lucy. Hear my apology. Apology? I don't need any of that. Just pay child support. Please, I didn't know she was like this. It's better to move back with you and live together. I'll have more money that way. What? He stammered and then pled with me. I was tricked by Sally. Now I'm finally free of her brainwashing. I want to see our cute daughter and make you both happy. We'll look great together, you know, a handsome dad and a cute girl. His smooth talking made me laugh. No way. You said you didn't care about her a year ago. And when things get tough, you come crawling back. You're the worst. You're not coming near my daughter. Don't say that. Please forgive me, Lucy. I felt sick, and turned away, only to find Sally laughing.
Darren, you're stuck with me. Work hard for my damages.
Sally, you're in big trouble too. You promised to pay me in full. Borrow money if you have to. I'll go to court if needed. I'm serious.
Stop it! We're friends. You don't want me to be a criminal, right?
We're not friends. You've been sued so much that your social reputation is ruined. At this point, you should be used to it. Hearing my cold tone, she stood next to him pleading.
Please, I'll apologize as much as you want. Just reduce the damages. Or even cancel them, please.
Do you realize how much you hurt me a year ago? No reductions. Pay up or I'll enforce it. Goodbye. I left the coffee shop, watching them get scolded by the staff. Other customers filmed them. They deserved each other. I hurried home to my daughter and parents. Darren and Sally faced a messy divorce. He wanted out, but she wouldn't let go. And the court battles drained them. Moreover, Darren started hitting on every young woman he saw at the branch office. The company saw it as a problem and transferred him to an even more remote office, basically forcing him to quit. I insisted that my daughter's child support not be reduced, so he had to take various night jobs. Despite that, the divorce proceedings were costly and he was in the red. Sally, who was already disliked at work for her incompetence, was fired when it came out that she had been sued by the wives of her boss and another senior employee. Now she was taking any job to pay off the damages. A former classmate said she looked haggard. This was all because of her foolish choices for a fleeting sense of superiority. My daughter and I are thriving with the support of family and friends. My career is going well, though weekdays are often spent away from my daughter. To make up for it, we enjoy weekends and holidays together, and I use my vacation days to spend time with her. She greets me with a big smile when I come home from work. At first, I felt guilty for being a single mom, but seeing her grow and smile every day erased any regrets. We'll continue to support each other and live happily.
While away on a business trip, my husband called to say, "I'm divorcing you." When I got home, I found a completed divorce form and submitted it.
My husband and I work together at my father-in-law's company. Although we work in the same company, my husband and I are in different departments. I work in the sales department and travel more frequently than my husband. Lately, my husband has been arguing with me more often about my business trips. One day I was ordered by the company to go on a 2-week business trip, which led to a huge fight between my husband and me. When I returned from the business trip, I found completed divorce papers waiting for me, so I promptly submitted them, and that was the outcome. I often had to go on business trips due to my job, which always led to complaints from my husband. If it had just been complaints, that would have been okay, but recently the business trips became the trigger for major fights. In the end, this became the catalyst for us divorcing. My snide husband gave me a painful experience, and I want you to hear it. Ugh, husbands who make snide remarks and nag are so irritating, right? They meddle in your work even though they have no clue. Sounds like a satisfying story, right? Okay, keep going. Thank you. So let's continue right away. My husband Ashwin and I both work at a company managed by my father-in-law. By the way, we work in different departments. Since joining this company, I've been working in sales nonstop. On the other hand, my husband has been gaining experience in various departments, aiming to become the next president. My job is incredibly busy, and there's never a dull moment, but I find it fulfilling and enjoyable every day. My husband and I have been married for 2 years, having met at a company drinking party where we happened to sit next to each other and hit it off. The period before we got married was quite short. Perhaps because the period before marriage was short, I gradually started to see my husband's flaws after we got married. Since my job involves frequent business trips, it often caused friction with my husband. Every time I went on a business trip, my husband would make snide remarks, and I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Sorry, I have to go on another business trip from now on.
Huh? You're going on another business trip? You're so carefree, aren't you? Unlike you, I'm studying and working in various places to become the president. I have plenty to do. But Kelsey, you just call it a business trip and then go sightseeing and buy souvenirs. Must be nice, huh?
I'm not sightseeing or going on vacation or anything. I'm going for business purposes. I never play around during business trips.
You say that, but are you really just playing around? Honestly, I envy how you can travel on the company's dime.
Even though I say I'm doing sales work, he never listens. He seems to want to say he's the one doing more work and trying harder. Recently, whenever something doesn't suit him, he's started loudly complaining to me. Let's talk about that dinner with curry one day.
Hey, Kelsey, what's for dinner tonight?
What do you mean? It's curry.
I'm asking why you made such a lazy cooking.
It's not lazy at all. I made it properly.
Making curry is just cutting ingredients and adding the roux, right? That's definitely lazy cooking.
Then why don't you just not eat this lazy food?
What? Are you telling me not to eat anything?
Well, you don't want to eat lazy cooking, right?
Who do you think allows us to live this good life? If you keep being cheeky, I'll divorce you.
He started telling me he would divorce me whenever something didn't please him. Our relationship as husband and wife deteriorated more and more because of that. By then, I was already feeling quite anxious about my marriage with him. One day, the company ordered me to go on a 2-week business trip. I knew he would complain again, but ignoring him would have made things even more complicated, so I reported it to my husband the day before.
Huh? Another business trip again? And on top of that, it's for 2 weeks this time? What about my meals during that time?
I'm sorry, but you'll have to figure something out yourself. Since you have the chance, why not try cooking for once?
Why do I have to be the one to cook all of a sudden? Cancel that business trip, you're not going.
What are you saying? That's not something I can do.
It's an order from the company, so it's impossible. I'm the next president, so what I say goes, right?
But my father-in-law, who is the president, really wants me to go.
Anyway, this business trip is cancelled. I'll inform Dad myself.
Ashwin doesn't have the right to cancel my business trip, right? Plus, I don't even know if Ashwin can become the president. Honestly, under the current circumstances, becoming president seems quite difficult.
So what are you saying? That I'm not as good at my job as you, Kelsey?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But it sounds like you're saying I don't do any work at all.
Well, let's face it. You don't seem to do much. You just push off all the tough stuff onto other people and don't really contribute anything yourself. It's common knowledge around the office. Honestly, what you're doing right now is no different from stealing a paycheck.
Feeling like I had hit a nerve, my husband lashed out at me in a fit of rage.
Kelsey, you've become so disrespectful lately. Are you trying to get me to divorce you?
It's you, Ashwin, who's been disrespectful, not me. You're looking down on me too much, Ashwin.
Kelsey, you're below me. You don't get to talk to me like that. You can't even cook properly and you neglect your housework by making excuses about business trips. I'm divorcing you, Kelsey. I honestly didn't think you were such an incompetent woman, Kelsey.
Oh, here we go again. Divorce, divorce. It's not something you say lightly.
You're scared of being divorced by me, aren't you, Kelsey?
No, I'm not scared or anything.
If you divorce me now, you won't be able to live as luxurious as you do now. If you want to be the president's wife, you just need to be obedient and follow me from now on.
Satisfied with himself, my husband laughed and walked away. As I watched my departed husband, I became convinced that continuing to be with him was impossible. Wow, he's such a typical unpleasant husband. If such an unpleasant guy becomes the president, the company's done for. I feel sorry for the employees too. This husband of yours really underestimates things. He won't understand until he faces consequences. Honestly, my husband underestimates me too much. That's why I decided he needs to face consequences. So I will continue with my story. My husband strongly opposed this business trip, but I decided to go anyway. When I left the house, my husband glared at me quite a bit, but I ignored it and headed straight to my business destination. That night, my husband called me.
Kelsey, you went on that business trip after all, despite everything I said last night. And you neglected your housework and didn't even make me dinner.
I was rushing around this morning and I didn't have time to clean up. I'm sorry I left a mess. And you said to fend for myself with dinner, didn't you?
You're really an incompetent wife. You're not fit to be my wife. I'm divorcing you.
Since I had another appointment scheduled, I had to hang up on my husband's call. Having said his piece, my husband seemed to calm down and didn't contact me again. 2 weeks later, I returned home as planned. When I entered the house, the rooms were strangely tidy. I thought my husband had had a change of heart and cleaned up for me, but that didn't seem to be the case. Glancing at the table, I noticed something on it. It was a piece of paper, a divorce notice. My husband's name was painted on it. I didn't understand, but there was no note, so I decided to call my husband to find out what was going on. He answered my call immediately. Where are you now? What's the deal with the divorce notice on the table?
I'm at my parents' house right now. I'm going to live here for a while until you get down on your knees and apologize to me.
I see. Then what are those divorce papers?
If you don't want to apologize to me, then file for divorce. By that, I mean you'll be a stranger to me.
Are you serious about that?
Of course I'm serious. I'm always ready to dump you, Kelsey. If you don't want me to dump you, come apologize to me right now.
As he said that, my husband hung up the phone. My mind was already made up. I quickly signed the divorce papers and headed to the city hall to submit them. And just like that, the divorce was finalized. I was finally divorced from my husband. As I filled out the divorce papers, I couldn't help but think, what a terrible man my husband is. He was truly the worst. I can't believe the divorce was granted so easily. A few hours later, my husband came back home with his mother. I guess he was expecting me to come to his house and apologize, so he was getting impatient with my lack of action. My mother-in-law standing next to my husband glared at me and said, I heard from Ashwin that you, Kelsey, have been disrespectful to him. I thought you would come home from your business trip today and apologize right away, but you haven't come at all. Just as Ashwin says, you're a really impudent wife.
Exactly what my mother says. Who do you think you are living off of? If this keeps up, I'm really going to divorce you.
I already submitted the divorce papers and they were accepted. My husband probably never thought I would file for divorce. He looked pretty surprised and dumbfounded.
No way.
I also felt that Ashwin and I were not going to make it from here on out, so I got the divorce papers filed as you wished.
Hey, wait a minute. It's not right to just file for divorce without talking to me.
Then what about that divorce paper that was left there? Didn't you leave it there because you wanted to divorce me?
No, that's not it. It was for... I thought that by showing you the signed divorce papers, you would be scared and stop being disrespectful to me.
Isn't it strange to prepare a divorce paper for such a reason? So you wanted to divorce me, didn't you, Ashwin? I don't mind that, so that's fine. I've been thinking about divorce for a while now.
But if you divorce me, you won't be able to live a rich life or become a company president's wife.
I didn't marry you, Ashwin, because I wanted to be a president's wife, so I don't mind at all.
Hey, can't you be a little more honest? You don't really want to divorce me, do you?
Now that's not true. If you didn't want to get a divorce, you wouldn't have filed for a divorce in the first place. Aren't you the one who really doesn't want to get a divorce, Ashwin?
Well...
Hey, Kelsey, divorce is something that a husband and wife need to discuss and decide on together. Since Ashwin is against this divorce, you should cancel it. So keep cooking for Ashwin as his wife from now on.
Mom, in the first place, you can't cancel a divorce that has already been accepted, and I don't intend to cancel it.
Kelsey, are you sure you're okay with this? You're going to regret this for sure.
Yes, I think I would regret it more if I didn't get a divorce here. You always complain and nag at me every time I come home from a business trip, and you yell at me loudly when you're not happy. I don't want to live with such a selfish person. I've reached my limit. I would much rather be divorced and single for the rest of my life than continue living with you, Ashwin. I said what I was thinking. My husband's expression turned sullen at this remark. My mother-in-law glared at me even more. I could see that both my husband and my mother-in-law were getting irritated. But then my husband suddenly started to grin and said this to me.
If we get divorced, what are you going to do about work? You're not thinking of continuing, are you?
Of course, I find my current job fulfilling and interesting, and I plan to continue doing it.
Don't be ridiculous. Do you think you can continue working for this company after you divorce me?
Honestly, I don't like working in the same company as you.
If you say you're going to divorce me, I'm going to have you, Kelsey, quit the company. You don't have to come in from tomorrow on.
What are you talking about? Ashwin, you don't have the authority to fire me.
Me? I'm the next president.
So what does that mean?
Can't you understand even after I've said this much? It's really a pain to have an incompetent employee. As the next president, I have the authority to fire employees, so it's only natural.
Whether or not I have to quit the company is something that my father-in-law, the president, has the authority to decide, isn't it?
I'm sure my father will fire you too.
Yes. If you don't want to lose your job, follow Ashwin's instructions.
This is not going anywhere. Let's ask him directly.
Who are you going to ask?
The president, my father-in-law, of course. I'm going to call him now, so wait a minute. Because I couldn't talk with my husband and my mother-in-law, I called my father-in-law. Actually, I had already informed my father-in-law about the divorce before my husband and his mother arrived. My father-in-law understood the situation this time, so the conversation proceeded smoothly. and my father-in-law expressed that he wanted to talk directly with my husband and mother-in-law, so he agreed to come to our house right away. It seems like your dad will come over soon.
Is that true?
It seems like he also has something to discuss with both of you. I'm at work right now, but I'll head over from there.
Wait a minute. When you say both of you, do you mean me?
Yes, that's right.
Wait, does that mean Dad already knew we were getting divorced?
Of course he knew. I had already informed him about it.
What? What does that mean? Dad is taking your side?
I wouldn't say he's taking my side. More like he's speaking from a neutral standpoint, I think.
Even so, supporting my wife over his own son. Isn't that strange? Kelsey, are you possibly lying?
I'm just telling the truth. Well, he should be here soon, so let's wait for Dad. Shortly after, my father-in-law arrived. My father-in-law lowered his head to me, then looked sharply at my husband and mother-in-law, and my father-in-law began to speak.
I've heard everything from Kelsey. Ashwin, I hear that you have been quite cocky and rude to Kelsey, who is working hard at her job and housework. Also, when Kelsey went on a business trip, you apparently said something like she was using company money for a vacation. Kelsey has been working hard for the company's sales, and we've asked her to go on business trips. Yet you speak so arrogantly. Do you, Ashwin, know anything about the company? But it's a fact that my job is more demanding than Kelsey's, isn't it? I'm also the next president, and my job is much more challenging and busier than Kelsey's. Explain exactly what's so demanding about your job. I've heard everything from the other employees. You delegate all the difficult tasks to others and just complain yourself. And you're always late to the company. Since when did you become so important? Well, yeah, I'm the son of the president. It's a fact that I'm important. Ashwin, you're absolutely hopeless. Do you realize how much trouble you've caused for the other employees? You can't do any work, you complain, and you even try to harass female employees. Ashwin, as a professional, no, as a human being, you're finished. You've been doing whatever you like in the company I've built up. How are you going to take responsibility for this? I'm sorry.
My husband was severely scolded by my father-in-law. My husband seemed unable to argue back and could only shrink down. Kelsey, you managed to live with such a husband. It really was the right decision to part ways. My father-in-law's lecture continued for a while. Even my husband seemed close to tears.
I think you already understand, but Ashwin, you don't need to work at our company anymore. And don't come back home either. It's already troublesome enough if you depend on us any further. Wait, Dad, just wait a minute. Why do I have to quit the company? Shouldn't it be Kelsey who has to quit? Kelsey is indispensable to the company. Don't you understand even that? If Kelsey quits the company, who will bring in the contracts for the company? That's why I still want Kelsey to continue working at the company. But I'm the next president, you know. If I'm gone, who will take over the company? Let me make it clear, Ashwin. You seem to have deluded yourself into thinking you can become president. But I have never said a word about making you the president. Huh? You're joking, right? I thought I could become president soon. It seems like you misunderstood something. There's no way someone like you could handle being president. But didn't you tell me to learn various things in different departments? Doesn't that mean I should learn various jobs now so that I can handle them as president later? You couldn't do any work properly in any department, so you were just being shuffled around. You didn't try to work in any department at all. People like you are not needed in our company. You don't have to come from tomorrow.
Hold on, isn't that a bit much? Ashwin has been trying his best in his own way. Isn't it terrible to say he's not needed at the company?
It's because you always spoiled him like this that he turned out to be such a failure. I may not need to say this here, but I'm divorcing you. I've been putting up with you for a long time, but I'm sick and tired of living with you.
What? What about me is so irritating to you? I haven't done anything wrong.
Aren't you splurging on my money? You don't work. You don't do housework at all.
We should have some leeway, right? Can't I spend a little?
But there's a limit to everything, isn't there? Don't you understand even that? Anyway, I can't live with you anymore.
Wait a minute. I don't want a divorce. Please reconsider one more time.
That's right, Dad. I don't want my family to fall apart like this. It's your own fault that it turned out like this, isn't it? If you want to blame someone, blame your own actions up until now. At least leave me at the company. I've never even tried to find a job. Anyway, I'm worried. It's a request from your adorable son. Please, help me? Don't say such childish things. You're already an adult, so figure it out yourself.
Even if you suddenly say you want a divorce, I'm also in trouble. How are we supposed to live from now on?
Aren't you still at an age where you can work?
Are you really serious about getting divorced?
I've said it many times. I'm serious about it.
The two who had been pushed away by my father-in-law remained silent, and then my husband looked at me as if he was relying on me and said,
Kelsey, I think we should give it another try.
What do you mean? You mean because you can't live without my earnings?
Of course, I'll work hard too, but I want you to support me until I find a job. Haven't we supported each other as husband and wife until now?
Well, you did support me financially to some extent, but being together was really tough and difficult for me. And now, you don't even have any money, right? Being with just a burden like that, what benefit is it to me?
You don't have to put it that way.
At this point, my husband started to shed tears. It's just wasting time to deal with him anymore. I guess I'll go back to my parents' house soon. Let's discuss it through lawyers from now on. Ignoring my husband's words, I quickly packed my things and left with my father-in-law. My left-behind husband made a fuss like a child throwing a tantrum. My mother-in-law was glaring at him. Oh wow, this is a mess. Seriously, this must be the result of my mother being too lenient. I never expected my mother-in-law to get divorced too. I guess my husband's personality takes after my mother-in-law. Anyway, I'm glad my father-in-law is a decent person. It's really good to have someone understanding in the in-laws. It was really good to have someone understanding to talk to. Well, I'd like to talk about what happened in the end. Just a bit more, please listen. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law who were kicked out of the house apparently started living in an apartment together. My ex-husband seemed to have started looking for a new job, but as you know, he couldn't find one and is barely getting by with part-time work. However, both my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law haven't changed their spending habits, and it seems they've accumulated a significant amount of debt. They seem to be struggling a lot, but well, it's all self-inflicted. I did receive messages from my ex-husband begging for a reconciliation, but I ignored them completely. He was so persistent that I even blocked him to cut off contact. On the other hand, I'm still working at the same company. Work is going well, and I was recently promoted. I'm busier than ever, handling important tasks and enjoying fulfilling days. I'll take a break from romance for now and focus on work. So, that's it. It's a bit abrupt, but that's the end of the story. See you somewhere else. Good job! I'm glad Kelsey is continuing with her job. Her ex-husband was really unpleasant, huh? I hope Kelsey find happiness from now on. It turned out well because her father-in-law was decent. She seems busy with work, but keep enjoying and working hard. A husband who quickly talks about divorce over selfish things. It started as a joke, but Kelsey took action and actually got divorced. That's how Kelsey finally found happiness. I want to support Kelsey from now on. Even if the other person is joking, it's good to try putting their words into action. By doing so, things can move in a positive direction and you can achieve better results than you thought.